Rainworld is a peculiar game to discuss regarding its themes, not because of any particular difficulty in their analysis, or because of the complexity of the themes' presence due to the fact, but simply because of their abundance and the amount of potential interpretations that people have taken from the game. Then again, it might also have to do with the fact that the gameplay looks like this.
No, I have a handicap, I have a handicap!
There's just so many different ways that one could look at Rainworld in regards to its story. Some might consider it a satire on religious idols with just how many different instances religious figures and practices are paralleled in the game, while others may see it as an allegory for the capitalist habit of selfish gain at a cost of an environment and society, which is left with abandonment as its only option in the long run. But this video isn't designed to talk about the many potential outlooks and themes in the game, nor is it to even compare, contrast, or downplay them. This is rather a video to discuss one of the many potential outlooks that the game's story can take. A theme that is present throughout each of the main campaigns in the game to some extent, and that I feel is considered only secondary despite its prominence in the story's forefront. That theme is family. The game's main story focuses on the journey of the nomadic creatures of an unnamed apocalyptic landscape known only as the Slugcats, or rather, two sibling Slugcats in particular if you were only to play the main game. This section will go over all of the Slugcats in reference to the major timeline as a whole, which is surprisingly just a small portion of the game's timeline, but we'll get there. The main Slugcat you will likely play in the initial game are the Survivor and the Monk, siblings whom, after being caught in a rainstorm, are separated, as the Survivor is dragged away by a torrential downpour and the Monk leaps in to save him. The Survivor's campaign follows his attempts to reunite with his family, while the Monk's follows his search for his lost sibling. This is what is motivating both of the characters in the first place, especially with the Monk, who's essentially retreading his brother's steps in order to find him throughout his entire campaign. It illustrates how vital family is to the story overall right off the bat, as the game's main story that draws people in is quite literally hinged upon the bond between two creatures tied to one another as family, with both of the Monk's potential endings involving the reunion of the two brothers. The reason I find this so fascinating is because the Survivor has two possible endings as well, but they're very different. In one of his endings, he gives into the religious aspects of the world around him and ascends beyond the samsara-like cycle of reincarnation, only to reunite with other Slugcats who have done the same. Or to deny that ascension overall and return to his original nest from which he was swept away. But for the Monk, again, it's all a retreading of steps. The Monk's ending is, in essence, the exact same result in reunion with his brother. And that, I find, is beautiful, as it illustrates a common theme that Rainworld shows family to specialize in throughout: bond. The game constantly illustrates familial ties as inevitability for the characters throughout the story, throughout all campaigns. I mean, this is only the main campaign, but it's not the only example shown through these creatures. You know what, this is a shorter section, just for the sake of example, but the Artificer, a Slugcat from the game's Downpour expansion, is a mother Slugcat whose quest for... Why did I write that in the script? Ape genocide is fueled by the death of her two slug pups at the hand of the scavengers. Like the previous two campaigns, the Artificer has two possible endings. The one which is canon... The one which is canon and the canon end... Yeah, I guess. The one which is canon involves her completing her murderous spree to the point of reaching the tallest point of the world where the King of Scavengers dwells, and where she violently kills him and dons the crown as the new Scavenger Queen, perpetuating the cycle of death that the Scavengers lead, with her as the face of the spree. But, should you decide to go for the good ending, driven not by revenge but rather by your children directly, you ascend in an attempt to reunite with your kids for one last time, and hopefully forever. Ironically, in that desire to stay connected to her children, she's unable to pass properly. The game's religious cultural structure can be best compared to the Buddhist reincarnation cycle of samsara, as previously mentioned, in that one ties to earthly desires is what keeps people tied in the cycle of reincarnation. As a result of this, even though the Artificer goes through all the steps in-game to ascend, she simply can't. Though she cannot return from death, she also can't ascend properly, and is thus left in a state of permanent limbo, one in which she is stuck, due to her desire to reunite with her kids again. This, coupled with the Monk's ending, implies that the Monk could have had a similar fate had he gone with the base game's ending, but that's besides the point. This is yet another instance of the game illustrating the importance of bond and family in regards to its story, with it being something so vital to the story that it quite literally denied a proper fate in moving on. And yet, the game does not necessarily portray this as something bad. In the final campaign, you get to talk to these echoes of beings that were unable to move on due to their worldly possessions, similarly to the Artificer. And one in particular, named Rhinestones Beneath Shattered Glass, yeah, this isn't the only weird name on this list, trust me, has this to say regarding the cycle. Oh, they didn't have the will to depart nor the desire. Why do they always search for an escape as if we were imprisoned? What offering from the void could usurp the life already given? In questioning the cycle and culture around it, the Echo essentially justifies constant themes of familial ties that are literally everywhere, despite the main story implying that all of it is best left behind. Despite the fact that their culture literally revolved around letting go of everything, including those around you. In this, the main earthly desires carried out by these slugcats, their familial bonds, are not only put at the forefront, but justified. Now, you might have noticed that I've only really talked about 3 campaigns here. Technically 4, but throughout the game there are 8 different slugcats you can play as, including the DLC, all of which happen throughout different time periods. So what, does the familial aspect of the game only apply to 3 campaigns? If that were the case, no wonder this aspect of the game's narrative is never at the forefront. Why should it be? And to be honest, if our focus were to be on these characters, on these creatures, then yeah, there would absolutely be no reason to continue this video, considering that on a surface, the other 3 slugcats you play as, those being the Spearmaster, Hunter, and Rivulet, don't share this theme in terms of their characters alone. But that's because the focal point of these campaigns isn't on the slugcats. It's on the Iterators. Here's a quick crash course on Rainworld lore. Ancients want to escape cycle, basically meaning achieving enlightenment, so they starve themselves to figure out how, literally eating rocks. Eventually this gets boring and sucky, so they instead built massive supercomputers with so much processing power that they are basically sentient beings with enough power and size to be considered gods of the world. So much so that they are built over oceans to use water as coolant so that the water comes down as torrential rain. Rain world. Oh! Very quickly, the ancients find goop that makes it so that you can actually just ascend. But actually, you need to be free of our corporeal ties or you turn into those echoes I was talking about earlier, but that's not important. So slowly, all the ancients start jumping into the goop in hopes of proper ascension to Nirvana. Some do, some don't, whatever. Point is, they're gone. And now, the Iterators, being the only beings on the land abandoned by their creators, seek the answer to a question now null and void to anyone other than themselves. Among these massive superstructural beings are 4 in particular, which I will refer to as members of the local group, comprising of 4 Iterators. No significant harassment, 7 red suns, 5 pebbles, and looks to the moon. Know that Moon is the most important. She was among the first of Iterators to be built by the Ancients, and as a result is seen by the other Iterators as a superior, with even Iterators outside of the local group referring to her as Big Sis Moon. This title isn't just a status either. Moon actively takes care of the mental state of most Iterators when they go through episodes wondering why their creators left them to toil away at a question now null and void. Moon serves as a guardian sibling to this local group, as a sort of motivation, as a sibling figure, as a big sister. 5 Pebbles almost represents the sort of impulsive little brother to the group, directly opposing Moon. One who constantly feels as though they're worked against, and one who, despite being told everyone means well, feels the exact opposite. As a result, he's distanced himself from the group that he considers family for so long and tries to figure out the answer to the question on his own. And after an inciting incident that leads him to the conclusion that the only person he can trust is himself, he indirectly kills Moon, or at least puts her in a coma. Moon and Pebbles were built incredibly close to each other, to the point where they essentially shared the ocean water they used as coolant. Through Pebbles trying to run several parallel processes, he hogs all of the water, causing Moon to overheat and collapse. And in everyone trying to stop Pebbles by doing the equivalent of spamming him in Discord DMs, he loses focus and creates something truly sinister spreading within his own compound. Now, this is the story that basically sets up these 3 slugcats going forward, with the first being the Spearmaster, a predatory slugcat sent by the Iterator 7 Red Suns. He sends the Spearmaster after learning what Pebbles had been doing with his limited water supply, having the slugcat as a sort of messenger to relay Sun's disapproval. Through this, Pebbles has his final reason to attempt a complete cutoff from the rest of the local group, feeling nothing but betrayal, completely disregarding any empathy he might have had for his actions against his sister. After some unspecified time, Moon collapses, and Pebbles is completely cut off from the rest of his family, finally seeing disdain for what he's done to his sister, and nothing but shame regarding his family's outlook on him. It's around this time that No Significant Harassment, another Iterator in the local group, attempts a rescue through the Hunter slugcat, carrying his own message and a key for the sake of restarting Moon, bringing her back to life. Now, you can play through this entire campaign completely disregarding 5 Pebbles, as you're basically just reviving Moon and going for the Ascension. But on the off chance that you decide to enter his compound and visit him, rather than attempt to drive you away, 5 Pebbles resonates both with your cause to save his sister and your situation, as the hunter carries an illness similar to the one that he had made for himself, and decides to help you out in doing his best to suppress that illness, giving you more time. I feel like the storylines regarding the Ida Raiders only getting better the further down you go in the timeline, because it really just goes to show how much the Ida Raiders see each other as the only family they have left. I forgot to mention it earlier, but the Spearmaster's campaign ends with a message sent out to the local group from Moon, essentially her final goodbyes before her impending doom that she knows is coming. She could have gone dark off the record, leaving everybody to great disdain for 5 Pebbles for essentially killing their big sister, but instead she tries to defend him, saying that his pain is one that they all share, and it simply drove him mad faster. Moon knew that the likely outcome was everybody's remaining hatred for 5 Pebbles and didn't care. She still decides to demonstrate her empathy for her little brother. In the case of the hunter, the impact of Moon's generosity is not left unseen, as another member of the family still tries to reach out and help, to great success, and to Moon's appreciation once her revival is acted upon. And it all culminates in what I believe to be the most beautiful campaign in the game. I hate using speech-to-text for... I hate using speech-to-text for scripts. The reviewlets. That's silly. The Rivulets campaign takes place in a far later point in timeline. After the Fallout, and even after the Survivor and Monk's story, it's never really known how Rivulet was created, as the only info he carries are blueprints, but it doesn't particularly matter, because this is a campaign that has no outside interference as a result. This is a campaign that is focused directly on the relationship between Moon and Pebbles, the latter of whose state has rapidly decreased. I mentioned earlier that Pebbles had created something within his own complex after being distracted by his pleas to stop decaying his sister. What Pebbles was trying to create was something that would allow for easy ascension, a found solution that is portable and generally applicable. Instead, he created a tumor, an unfortunate development which slowly but surely ate his can from the inside out, and did nothing but consume more and more the more it grew. There were glimpses of these tumors while playing a Spearmaster, but the rate at which these tumors have grown has gotten out of control. If you somehow manage to make it in to communicate with Pebbles, rather than being bitter and cruel to the Slugcat, he asks for one last favor. That favor being to deliver his replaceable heart to Moons, knowing that it will shut him down for good. Now, to progress the game, obviously, you do this and get some cool shots along the way. This game looks really beautiful. And replace Moon's damaged heart, fixing her and re-establishing her communication with the local group after God knows how long. The last known thing that happens throughout the entire timeline, for sure, is Moon's adopting of Rivulet and her reconcile with the dying 5 Pebbles, as they do the only thing they can do until his can collapses with no hope of rebuilding. Play board games. You know, sibling bonding, whatever. I'm an only child, I wouldn't get it. Now, I absolutely adore the story of Rain World, for the reason that it doesn't even need to be experienced for you to have a good time, but should you decide to go the extra mile and get yourself involved with the story, it is absolutely 100% worth it. In terms of the theme of family specifically, it makes it so much more effective in regards to what the game wants to represent. I mean, the bond between Slugcats alone is constantly demonstrated as something that not only gives the motivation to keep on thriving through a harsh environment, and the environment is harsh, but also is something that is portrayed time and time again to be genuinely beautiful enough to become obsolete for. And I think the Ida Raiders only add to this, because imagine an ideal Ida Raider that truly didn't care. Neither 7 Red Suns nor No Significant Harassment had to send the Slugcats that they sent, nor did 5 Pebbles need to help the Hunter or Rivulet in assisting his decayed elder sister. But he did, and they did. It demonstrates that themes of family bonds with these characters go far deeper than the names they give each other. In being quite literally all that they have left, they've bonded to the point where they are everything to each other. And honestly, wouldn't give it up for the world, or anything beyond. There are several instances of Ida Raiders outside of the local group questioning amongst each other why they even continue to search for an ascension method other than programming, and they fail to find a solid reason. Compare this to their simple reason of wanting to help their family whenever they send out another bioengineered organism to help their decaying neighbors, without any justification than the desire to help those that they see as family, created and abandoned by the same caretakers, now all that they have left. In a way, all too similar to the Slugcats. Now, I've excluded 2 campaigns from in-depth discussion because I don't feel like they work for my point. The Gorgons campaign is essentially a giant expedition through the world, and the Saints campaign is dubiously even canon. But I don't think that changes much. I believe that these stories with branching paths illustrate that Rainworld sees familial ties as something much more than just a tearjerk at, though I'll admit I did at times. It's demonstrated as something almost powerful. Powerful enough to drive those who want to keep going on their journey for purely selfless reasons. Something that serves as a direct counter to a nihilistic outlook that the society before them took oh so seriously, a lot of which with insane levels of hypocrisy. A force that regardless of whether the characters are in the world, regardless of their state, regardless of their relationship between each other, and regardless as to whether or not they even know their state of being, allows for enough hope to keep going, and to keep trying, for their family, and for the bonds that hold them. What offering from the void could usurp the life already given? This is where we were meant to be.